Hello everyone and welcome to the show. It's Trevor Stockwell here with you on this episode, along with my guest Theano. Now, wherever you are on the scale of building and developing successful, healthy relationships, if you're like me, you know there's always more to learn. So rest assured, Theano is here to help share her insight. She helps individuals develop authentic relationships, both professionally and personally. She's a certified authentic Tantra practitioner and relationship coach. So welcome, Theano Evagelou.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me today.
No, it's great. I'm really looking forward to our discussion today. Maybe just to start with, share a little bit about your kind of journey that's brought you to where you are now and how you help people.
Oh gosh, it's a very long journey, but I'll tell you the tidbits that I feel would be most relevant. I grew up in an entrepreneurial environment myself, and I was exposed to examples of female loneliness, fruitless searching for love, acceptance, and worth, and examples of male identity seeking through gambling, superficiality, infidelity. Essentially, I really watched the influential people in my life seek worth through the external. And as a result, I was also a child of a high conflict divorce. So I just had poor models of love, sexuality, and intimacy. So after my own journey of dysfunctional relationships, I was engaged 3 times, divorced twice. It was my second divorce where I divorced 10 years ago now, where I really started to look like what it meant to connect to my femininity, and doing that in healthy ways that allowed me to embody my sexuality more powerfully. So what this allowed me to do was to stop playing small and really stepping into my true power and my true nature, so I can actually live into my biggest transformation. So that was the foundational piece. When I went through my divorce, I had a 3-year-old who was looking at my every move, right? So it was wanting to do things differently than my parents had. And it just brought me on this path of learning to have a deep level of fear of myself. Like, who did I want to show up at? Who did I want to be? And simultaneously, by going through this, I was going through a high conflict divorce myself. And simultaneously running a family general contracting business with my father, who had just gone through a 7-figure loss, and he was like, "Okay, go fix it." Wow. And I was used to functioning in leadership. I moved up the ladder very fast in roles, but it was very, I'm going to say, from a masculine space. Like, you're meeting people at a very patriarchal platform. So the expectations of how you show up and how you do things always felt like a push, always felt like a struggle, always felt like something out there. And when through doing this work, and look, my family business was general contracting, a very male dominated industry again, I said, what would it look like if I actually brought in my inherent qualities as a feminine and led from there? So I explored that and I started playing with that. And what I found was I actually gained more respect. I actually felt more in flow with my energy and my life force than I had in the past. And then what I also came to understand is, as women, we're natural nurturers, collaborators, protectors. And when you just start applying these parts into your leadership, things transform. Like, people were coming to me with a different level of, "Hey, can you come help, this conflict, over here needs a resolution, and you're so good with that. Can you come mediate this? Can you deal with the lawyers on this? Can you, handle this customer, like difficult client, let's say." It just allowed me to really step into my power, and it just felt so easy compared to what I had been used to leading from. And yeah, like, I was able to help recover the business so much quicker. I was just in a different flow that I was like, everyone really needs to understand and work with this energy in a way that just actually allows operations to be more fluid. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then from there, it was just, I went through a life-threatening illness. So for 2.5 years, I was bedridden. And that, again, for type A personality, I'm going to say triple A, it was very challenging. And I had to learn to surrender to my body and really understand, let my body guide me. So that was, again, another part of really coming home to myself. And that was a time when I did my certifications in the work I was doing, because been doing years and years of work at this point. And I was like, now I want to do something with it. I might as well, since I'm in bed. And then when I got to the other side of that, part of this work I felt healed me and helped me come to the other side. It was then that I really used my experiences or reflected on them. Even my divorce, like I understood my ex chose a lifestyle over a marriage, and I was able to find a place of forgiveness, compassion, understanding. I didn't have to make things that happened right or wrong, but I could find a place to heal and understand he was wounded too. And this was his space of his capacity of how he knew how to deal with things.
Yeah.
So that's what brought me here and wanting to serve entrepreneurs, because I just hear time and time again, just how they're successful in one area, not in another. And they really don't believe that there is a harmony that can be found in both. Or a lot of entrepreneurs who are very driven, like a lot of that is a stress response or a trauma response. Many don't even identify or know that. So when they just start slowing down to come into relationship of everything we're taught around power, money, sexuality, relationships as children is what plays out as adults.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of unwrapping and undoing to really discover what our true nature is that we really want to live into, and not feel lost in an identity that we feel so disconnected to. Yeah,
absolutely. You've had a very bumpy journey, haven't you? But you've come out of it well in the sense that you've now got the perspective and the skills. You've been able to turn it around to help the people that you do to kind of navigate the pitfalls of relationships that are not ideal, or our self-perception of who we are and how we should be within the workplace, within our personal lives, kind of thing, any kind of relationships that we're in. Interesting. It's very interesting. So what would be, for people that are listening, where maybe for the first time they thought, actually, I can take the mask off. Yeah, Theano's saying I should be my authentic self. That's where I'm the most powerful. What would be, that's kind of scary, I think, in lots of ways. We hide it because we don't want to get hurt, or in the past there's been rejection, or lots of different reasons for it. But what would be maybe some of the first steps to opening up to, I suppose, accepting who we are, or the way we would lead, the way we would interact with people?
Well, here's what I say to clients I work with many times. It's like, we can only get intimate with another to the degree we can get intimate to ourselves, right? So it is essential that you start to understand, who am I? What are my desires? What do I like? What do I not like? How comfortable am I sharing that out loud? There's a vulnerability, a surrender. So it's learning to stretch our emotional capacity to go into these other parts of ourselves with greater confidence. And as entrepreneurs, I mentioned to you before, we have the emotional capacity. Like, we go through so many ups and downs in our businesses, right? Yeah. So it's a matter of, like, the capacity is there because you demonstrate it time and time again. But now, how do we translate that into our personal lives, our personal experiences, our intimate experiences, so we can understand what is my own, what I work with people is like discovering their own intimacy code, right? Like, it's like their own signature of expression. So the first steps is really, I always say, start having compassion, giving yourself permission, acknowledging that you do have the capacity in one area of your life, and you want to invite that and bring that to this other area of your life to now grow that garden the same way. Because I really do believe there is a harmony that can be found in having both healthy, thriving, powerful relationships and successful businesses.
Yeah. It's finding that the true authenticity, isn't it, that you're on about not being frightened to be who we are, but also, I was going to say package, that's probably not the right phrase, but present who we are in a formal context where we need to within our businesses, whether we're leading teams or multiple organizations, whatever the scenario, but then also being vulnerable enough with the team, but also developing the right balance of being vulnerable when we get home as well, so that we're not amazing to all of our team and then an absolute ogre to our spouse.
We want to live more into the wholeness of who we are in both areas. So bringing more of our I'm going to just say our intimate part to our work, and more of our in the skills of our entrepreneur space home. So we're living in a more whole way instead of compartmentalizing, and that takes so much energy, right? So we want to stop leaking energy and really contain it and direct it. Is it directing you, or are you directing it? And this is something I deal with a lot of clients where they're like, I have this huge drive and my partner doesn't. And, I want to make the relationship work, but we're just in different places. Well, it's like we're not taught that we can actually have a relationship with this energy, right? So it's like when I get excited, oh, I need to act on it. Well, you could, or you can acknowledge it. You can ride it. You can exist in the plateau of pleasure, and also direct it into your work, into your exercise, into your relationship. Live in that turn on and work with it, conduct it, rather than react to it. So it's always asking, are you directing it, or is it directing you? Right?
Okay. Yeah. I'm pausing because I'm thinking. You got me thinking on that one. That's good.
Is that too abstract for you? Sometimes I go way out there, so I just want to make sure I'm bringing it into a context that's relatable.
I think it makes sense. Yeah, I'm thinking more. Right now, okay, I'm listening to you. I've decided I need to be more authentic at work, in the workplace, whatever that might be for the scenarios that our listeners have got. But for me, so what would be my first, I wouldn't walk into the team and just go, hey, everyone, I'm now going to be completely vulnerable and open. Don't freak out, but this is the new me. I would find that scary anyway, to be that vulnerable straight away. But also, they would probably just sit and look at me with mouths dropped, thinking, what's going on? He's losing the plot, kind of thing. So what would be maybe to help transition that process? What would be because you must face it with the clients that you have. I guess I'm not the only person. I'm hoping I'm not the only person that has this issue. But what would be some of the things that you've learned and the way you help them kind of start the process?
Well, everyone comes in from a different space, right? So when they come in, is first of all working with the desire, and really typically what I do is I actually do a mind-body consciousness work to help them integrate that desire into the body, so they actually can feel where the resistance, where their blocks is, and then working through that, because sometimes the body holds things at a cellular level, and when you don't have the confidence or and that's holding you back from being an expression, when you're able to digest it and clear it, it actually just puts you in a completely different framework of your mind. So that's one thing. So it's getting aware and connected to allow you to open to even allow the possibility to be present. Okay. And then from there, when we look at dialogue, this is what, I work with people on, let's say, 5 principles of sexual communication in the bedroom, but it easily translates to outside of the bedroom. And this is why we communicate, what we're communicating, how we're communicating, when we're communicating and who communicates. Even when you bring this into a non-sexual situation, right? And you're saying, you know what, I'm going to forget the people I work with. I'm going to show up with a different intention of how I communicate. So it's like, I'm invested in people sharing and, their full, needs and wants. I'm going to make room for that. So when people feel seen, heard, they're actually there's a different level of respect and honor that shows up that actually starts shifting an environment, whether it's personal or collective. Okay. And then what we communicate, when we say what we like and enjoy, we focus on the good, we focus on what's working. You're actually getting people neurologically wired to start aligning to more of that turn on of that direction. Okay. This works in the bedroom, it works outside the bedroom, and I go deeper into it when I'm working with people. I'm just kind of giving it high level, but how we communicate is really more about using the please and thank yous, right? Like whether you're outside of the bedroom, inside of the bedroom. I always get my clients actually to practice outside of the bedroom first, or even with the work environment, because you're so not used to saying, hey, I like it when you do that, or hey, the way you did that really was, a move that showed the great values that the company holds. Thank you for doing that. Can you please do this? Because I really value your expertise in this area. Thank you for doing that. It's interesting when I watch people practice this dialogue with each other, and they're like, oh no, I'm a good communicator and we're really good at communicating. We're going to do this with my team. And then I'm like, okay, let me watch you. And I'll watch them in dialogue, and you'll just see the awkwardness, and they're like, wow, there's such a difference when you're intentional with the language and really acknowledging and noticing where you're planting it. Okay. And then when to communicate, like often make it open door. Really, it's one thing to have, I get at work boundaries, here are my windows, or here's when I'm having time available. But when I do have these windows, I'm fully present. You can knock on my door, ring my phone anytime in these windows, and I am here. And you invite that. So again, you're just making room. And it's actually, there's a lot of statistics that show when companies do this in their environments. And I think I spoke to you earlier, there was a company, and I totally forget the research, but a study done on a company that was exploring its different departments. And one of them actually, they were a 24-hour service company. So because people were all over the world, they're like, we can never turn our phone off. Someone always has to be on, and we always have to be this. So they experimented with one department and said, you know what, how does everyone feel about having one night a week off, completely off? Everyone loved it. Everyone was on board. Giving them that one day a week off, when they measured productivity a month later, had actually increased exponentially. The atmosphere, the mood of the people showing up shifted dramatically. And then when these same people were invited to meetings to express needs, wants, desires, whatever, people felt heard. There was a collective, like the management didn't honor everything, but there was a lot of stuff coming out that just allowed space to be held to one, acknowledge, to one, see, is this appropriate direction? Maybe there's something here that we can use, and, filter. It just, and long story short, the whole company ended up adopting these policies that proved to be successful. And now you bring these into relationship. When you make committed time for each other, turn off everything else but each other, how much more you're going to thrive in your relationship, in the household, and actually in the other parts of your life. Work and relationship, they fuel each other, right? So I always say we have a life garden, a relationship garden, and in it, flowers grow, weeds grow. Everything gets watered. But if we're not pulling out the weeds regularly, they grow too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and a lot of that is down to either not communicating or miscommunicating, like you say. We want to be able to build relationships. From what I'm hearing you're saying, I would say we want to try and build relationships where there is that open dialogue about, it's not necessarily confrontation, although confrontation in a positive way, done well, is actually quite healthy. But just that open sort of channel of communication where, actually, can I just tell you that I need this, or somehow communicate what it is that you're struggling with, or you're maybe not understanding from the other person, but also wrapped up in the thank you, the acknowledgement, and the appreciation of valuing the person for who they are and everything that they offer.
Like there's something else that I work with a lot is nonviolent communication, and I use it in relationships and business, but global leaders, very high conflict global parties actually use these principles themselves of nonviolent communication. And, you kind of touched on it when it's like you're really first observing the situation, like, oh, I notice ABC. And then it's like, acknowledge, I see that it makes you feel frustrated when that happens, or I see that you get really shut down when someone shines, puts attention on this, or when I call it up. And then you say, it looks like you need, am I right to say, like, so it's like you observe, acknowledge, need, and then someone makes a request or you offer a request. May I? Or the person could say, I really need, like you could say, okay, now that I've addressed these, I need X or I need Y. And that just allows space for conversation now to open. So now it's like, well, hey, I've seen your need this. Maybe I can't do this, but I can do this. Does that work? And you're looking for the stepping stones and the strategies of where that middle ground is.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of things I use with people, and this is a tool I'll share with everyone here, and it's so easy, and it's called, it's like the 10 spot, your pleasure scale, okay? So we always think of our pain, pain at 0 to 10. What is that? Well, let's change it and say the pleasure scale. Whatever you're doing, when moments in your day when you just notice, oh, okay, like I'm doing this podcast now, and I'm, before I was sitting before we started, and I said, well, what would make this feel closer to a 10 for me? Like I was like, okay, like it feels okay. I got a 7. But if I stand and I do different lighting and I close the door, that's going to feel really good to me. I'm like closer to a 10 now. So it's always in every moment, what brings me closer to my 10 spot? Like even, you're at work, or how you're communicating, or, hey, I'm always on the phone. Well, you know what? It'd feel really good if I had a headpiece instead of the phone, because I notice I'm getting this kink in my neck. You're doing these self-cares and attention. And when you start translating those even into the bedroom, like, oh, okay, you know what, maybe if I change the lighting or put on music or add some candles, like that's going to make me feel better when I'm with my partner. Yeah. It's the smallest things, but I always invite people every moment, find your 10 spot, check in on your 10 spot.
That's really good. And I guess some of that is actually us stopping and defining what those pleasure points are. What is the scale that I would operate against? And I guess then discuss it with your partner, because if their scale is completely different to yours, then one of you may be really happy and the other one really sad. And
well, that's an important thing that you're pointing there too, because when we talk about intimacy, and I mentioned to you how there's so many, different types of intimacy, like intellectual, physical, emotional, sexual, spiritual. There may be someone that, okay, like I get partners to do this, like, okay, intellectually 7, and she might be like, oh, I'm a 4, yeah. Or, different ones in different areas. So then again, when you're doing the scale, bringing that scale into it, you're like, okay, well, if I actually, what would bring it closer to a 10? I might ask my partner, and she'd be like, oh, if you just ask me more questions about my day, like, or allow me to have a different opinion and not judge it, right? Be like, oh, I can do that. And I still, like, I go from a 7 now to a 10 because it feels good to do that. Like, it's not a takeaway. It's like, yeah. I get to contribute and then still add. Even sexually, like, it's just a matter of like, okay, I this month you're asking me, I feel we're at a 7, and she feels like at a 10. Oh, well, what would bring you closer to a 10 in our time together? Oh, yeah. Well, I would really love more of this, whatever. Be like, oh, I can actually really do that, and I'd love to. So it's just making, like, I find the 10 spot in whatever you bring it allows for conversation. That conversation becomes strategy. And then you get to be creative, to be like, where can we meet each other? Where can we contribute? And you just start discovering so much about each other, so much about yourselves. And then you could even bring these into environment. Like, hey, what would make the way we collaborate or communicate closer to a 10? How does everyone feel our communication is now? How does everyone feel our productivity is right now? Right? Easy conversations that you just get so much. And these become intimate, connected experiences.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. It's like it's putting the proper focus on the other person, isn't it? So, like, for whatever reason, TV is not a good advert, I think, for proper intimate sex. And I think a lot of people can approach it from self-satisfaction, whereas I think true intimacy, and I'm not an expert on this, but true intimacy is more realizing that you're valued so much by the other person. And then if we kind of move that into your team at work, am I just barking out orders and expecting things done, or am I asking them how their day's going? Am I asking them if their family's okay? Do they need time off for certain things because they've lost a loved one? Or it's building kind of the appropriate levels of intimacy within the work context as well, isn't it? And it all comes down, the root of it has got to be, I'm not thinking about me, I'm thinking about you.
Because it's like, what is intimacy? Like, how do you define it? How do you mean it for, and most people, they relate it to sex.
Yeah.
But then it's like, really, intimacy is about trust, connection, safety. You provide these in any environment, the intellectual, emotional, physical. You're allowing opportunity to create an intimate container for people to feel safe, to feel connected, to grow in,
Yeah.
And that's truly, in today's world, especially in entrepreneurship, it's more about relationships, and the results are byproduct of the relationship. Like, even with me, when I teach, Tantra, it's really about relaxing the nervous system. Tantra is the highest form of yoga. There's very sexual and non-sexual practice. The benefits are, okay, you become multi-orgasmic. You're able to, separate orgasm from ejaculation. You're able to have multiple, whatever. But those are byproducts to what the real work is.
Yeah.
Right? So the same in our businesses, like the profits, the results. Yes, you want to have goals and you want to have dreams, and just in relationships, you want to have desires and whatever. But it's the way you nurture the container in it that allows that to be a byproduct of the real work, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And how different would, like, the annual performance review or whatever be if we approached it as leaders from the perspective of really getting to know the person? I mean, if you're doing your job well, you should discover what the motivators are of your staff. Generally, I think that's foundational. Sometimes that takes time, but it's having that conversation. And what does life look like from your side? What is it about the job that you really love? What do you hate? What do you hate about me? Getting to the point where you can have an honest conversation and say, what are the things I do that really don't help you do whatever it is you do? And I think, this is all really good, so thank you. A lot of the principles as well, they translate into reaching out to clients as well, don't they? How can we kind of build the right sort of relationship with clients? Because most people that we meet that could be potential clients, they're not going to buy from us straight away because they don't know who we are. That there's no track record, there's no authenticity. But it's about relationships, isn't it? Because most of the time people buy because of who we are.
Because they want to support you, they want to see you grow, they have a connection to you. So the more you foster that, the more you're going, I always say relationships, work, our clients, it's like dating. You're constantly romancing life, right? And this is why I say I'm an intimacy and relationship coach, but it works for everything, because we lost the art of devotion. We let distraction get in the way. We're constantly in autopilot, detached from everything. But when we come back to devotion, like, that is where true liberation comes in. That's where we get turned on to life. And then when we look at every opportunity relationship as an opportunity to romance a moment, to allure, and and from a very genuine place, because it could come in a place from manipulation. A lot of people feel the power and feel their influence and use it to manipulate, but there is a responsibility around it when you actually use it for good and being like, I want to honestly connect, I want to honestly service people, I want to genuinely enrich people's lives with this product, service, or whatever. People feel that like, there's no words, there's no whatever. So when you show up and you're like, oh, I noticed you loved that chocolate cake that we had when we just met for a coffee, so I brought you, or you sent her one, or something like that. Or a guy has been dying to get this something little small for his kid, and you heard him say it in conversation, and you did. How tenfold these people, when people feel appreciated or recognized, they show up tenfold.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So you say it might cost you this, but the results you get out of it are huge. And when you're doing it constantly from a place of just genuine investment on, I'm going to say, your garden, your business is your garden. You're watering it, you're fertilizing it. These are the little pieces. You're the heartbeat of it all when you see it like that.
That's the garden analogy is a really good picture that we can, use it to evaluate all the different areas that we have relations with, isn't it, really? Thank you for all of this. We are very near the end of our time together, but how can people best touch base with you? Because, there's lots of things that you can help people with in business, in, their home life as well. So what would be a good step for people to reach out to you?
Thank you. My website, thetheano.com. So TheTheano.com, or my email. And I don't know if you posted under your podcast, but it's devotion@thetheano.com. And they can reach out, and we can talk about just their intimate landscape and different ways I could support them. I do things at very different levels for individualized needs, because I think it is a very customized experience.
So do you coach couples as well, or is it more the one-to-one?
I do, actually. I do individuals. I do groups, actually. I'm getting a lot of requests of people wanting to do some group intimacy work, and couples as well. I work with them individually first, because I feel that they're pillars to the relationship, and then there's some pieces that need to be foundationally strengthened. Then you bring in the relationship, and then I end it like with a bespoke experience in Paris with some couples, if they like to take it to that level, and it's hosted by a spiritual high priestess there that allows them to embody the work at a much deeper level, if that's something that they wish to dive into.
There'll be a link to your site on the below wherever people click to listen to this, so they can then sort of explore further how best to kind of get help where they want to. But thank you for your time today. I feel I could easily spend the same amount of time again digging into lots of other areas that I haven't had a chance to chat to you about, really. But I appreciate everything that you've shared. You've kind of covered a very broad spectrum with a lot of your insights. So people can pick it up and use it in whatever place they're at the moment, whichever way they need it to develop and improve their relationships. So thank you for your time and for sharing, for being honest and vulnerable with us, and very open about partly your journey that got you to this, but also now how you've turned it around in a heroic way to help other people. So thank you for sharing your time and your expertise.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate it.
No, you're welcome. Definitely. For everybody listening, it's a big topic, but there's no part of our lives where relationships don't have an impact and a bearing, and we can all get better. So Take to heart the things that Theanos said. Contact her as well. Get in touch, see how she can help you further. Tell your friends. I'm sure we all have people with relationship issues that maybe won't talk to us, but talk to an independent third party that can help them. So for now, I will leave you to think about that, to put into practice the things that we've shared. Work out what your pleasure list is. Don't just focus on the pain points, but what are the pleasure points, amongst other things. But for now, we'll wrap this episode up. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next one.